Season 43, war number 7, and we're up against TCN. And this time my team will be Shuri, Silk and Future Ant-Man. I will be taking Path 5 in Section 1, along with that Kate Bishop, Zemo and Maw on the shared fights, Path 7 in Section 2, as well as that red Magneto there on the When I Open node. Then for the boss island, all the left side mini-bosses, as well as that Attuma boss with Shuri. This video is mostly gonna be a showcase on why Shuri is amazing, but there are a few repeat fights with others as well. Starting this one off with a Rintrah on ebb and flow knockdown and right back at it nodes, and I will be taking the fight with Shuri. Now, Rintrah doesn't really need a specific counter on nodes like these. He can be taken with most champions. He just has a big health pool, so it's gonna take a while, but that's about it. Though Shuri does have a few tricks up her sleeve to make this fight faster than it could be. And there are the guaranteed crits to bypass Rintrah's critical resistance, and then there are the passive shocks. The right back at it node makes the defender debuff immune for a while after they get knocked down, but the shocks being passive, they will not get removed at all. They stay there and they keep doing damage. As for the ebb and flow protection node, the protection would shrug off any and all debuffs on the opponent, but same deal there, they can't do anything about the passive shocks. Now Shuri is also unaffected by ability accuracy reductions, meaning that the neutralize from Rintrah will not be able to shut down the armor up buff that Shuri gets from the attack tactic, which is both a good and a bad thing. It's good in that it gives me a bit of power burn here and there, but the main issue with that is that the armor up expiring will feed Mystic Dispersion, so I have to bait more special attacks than I would necessarily like to. Either way, the fight goes down very easily. Shuri is still sitting at full health. And then we have a Hulkling on the ebb and flow knockdown and heavy hitter nodes, and I will be taking this fight with Silk. Now, this fight is not ideal by any means, but since Hulkling also does not require a proper counter on these nodes, we figured that I might as well use Silk here. There's nothing Hulkling can really do to me, and I will also be reversing most of the regeneration that he's gonna get in the fight. I do also have an access to the slow debuff with Silk's heavy attack, which would allow me to bypass the heavy hitter unstoppable here. That's not really gonna come into play though, because I will not be baiting any heavy attacks, but it is nice to have there, just in case. Now here I messed up my special 2 by throwing it into the indestructible, otherwise he would have been dead there, at least probably, but that's fine. Just makes the fight a tiny bit slower, but even then, this Hulkling is going down pretty fast. The passive fury that I'm getting from the ebb and flow knockdown node is helping a ton, and the heal reduction, rather heal reversal, is also making a bit of a dent in his health pool at times. Just over a minute, well, a minute and 15 into the fight, he goes down with a nice crit on the second hit of Silk's heavy attack. No issues there for her, though she's not an ideal option there by any means. And next up we have a Kate Bishop on the ebb and flow knockdown, right back at it and aggression prowess node, and I'm taking the fight with Future Ant-Man. And I do have the white Magneto pre-fight here to help me out. It is not necessary for Future Ant-Man to be able to take this fight, but being able to get your openings by relying on parry can be helpful at times, but yeah, you could just be baiting Kate's heavy attacks, punishing them with your own to remove the protection that way, so the evade stun would not be a problem in the slightest. Now single special 2 took her all the way down to around 30%, just need a few more hits or another special and the fight is done. Now Kate is a tactic defender, so she is a bit more annoying to deal with all those specials, but as long as you use a good or even decent tactic attacker, there aren't any real issues there. unless she decides to be very passive for whatever reason. Then we have the good old Baron Zemo here on the Hazard Shift, Incinerate and Shock node, and once again I am taking the fight with future Ant-Man. I do have Odin's shock resistance here as usual, so that I will be able to deal with the shock debuffs on this node as well. Without the pre-fight, I would either be eating a ton of shock damage, or I would have to dance around and wait the shock phase out, and that's not really an option, if I'm gonna be honest, due to the aggression prowess node. If I were to just dance around, wait out the shock phase, he would be stacking all of those prowesses from the aggression prowess node, and him being a tactic defender means that he would gain a ton of power from that. So, just to be safe, I always want to have the Odin's shock resistance here whenever I'm taking this. Zemo goes down in just under a minute, future Ant-Man still standing at full health, and yeah, he is probably the best option for it. Then we have a Zemo on the Scared Stiff and Power Focus 2 nodes, and I am taking the fight with Silk. As usual, the game plan is to just nuke him down with a special 2, and that's just about it. I will be knocking him down with my heavy attacks pretty often to make sure he doesn't trigger the falter on me, and that's basically all there is to it. This placement is getting a bit old, but I do understand why it's placed here. He can be a real pain if you mistime things, like I do here. I do get rooted, and yeah, that's not what you wanna do in this one. Luckily, I did manage to save myself there, and I managed to avoid the heavy attack as well. Had I eaten that, that would have been a ton of degen damage, but I did get a decent recovery there. Lost a bit of health due to my mistake, but he goes down. No real risk of dying there, but whenever that fight goes wrong, it just gets my heart pumping, well, due to what's happened in the past against Moss. Then we have a White Magneto here on the second wind unblockable and power creep nodes, and I am taking the fight with Shuri. Now, despite what people might think, based on how she looks and her being a tech champion, she is not tagged as a metal champion, so she can in fact take both Magnetos just fine. So essentially my game plan here is to just do the usual special 1 spam, get guaranteed crits, then just punch the opponent until they fall. And this person had also placed with the recoil masteries, probably by accident, but it did make this fight a lot faster. Well, maybe not a lot, but a little faster than it could have been. The fight itself was basically a nothing fight. The nodes don't really do anything there unless you actually play someone who does shrug debuffs. Then we have a Quicksilver on the second wind unblockable and make a stand nodes, and I'm taking this fight with Shuri. And going in, I figured that this fight would be a bit annoying to deal with due to having to deal with Quicksilver's evade every so often. But I had forgotten about the fact that he can't evade guaranteed crits, so as soon as I get my special 1s going, I completely shut down his evade, and this one is gonna be a lot easier than I first thought. Now that the evade is dealt with, the next biggest problem is Quicksilver's specials. But due to just how tanky Shuri is, she can just fully block the special 2 and it doesn't even dent her. Every single time Shuri blocks a hit while she is at 10 charges, she gains a passive armor up, which increases her armor rating, and due to just how many hits Quicksilver's special 2 has, yeah, he's not doing any damage, and I healed everything back with willpower anyways, because at some point Quicksilver dexed my hit, triggering a wither debuff on me. Then we have a red Magneto on the inevitable power efficiency, make a stand and one eye open nodes, and I am taking this fight with Shuri. And I was a little bit concerned about this one. I didn't have a real game plan going in, so I was just gonna figure it out as I go. To start the fight, I'm doing parry and full combos, even with the one eye open node, As you can see, I'm not taking any damage, and that is all thanks to the Mega Stand protection reducing the damage that I deal. But as soon as that node falls off, or rather goes on cooldown, I can't do the parries anymore, until it comes back at least. Now, the start of this fight did not go too well. I threw my first special one into his block, and even at this point I am still kind of figuring out what I should be doing. So I went ahead and used my heavy attack here to consume my guaranteed crits, to convert some shock debuffs into shock passives, with a quick and easy opening, utilizing the untouchable there. And that gave me an idea. I will be utilizing my heavy attacks to get the untouchable, to get my easy openings as well as my easy knockdowns, and then I'm gonna let the shocks do most of the damage while the protection is down. So, I just gotta throw a couple special ones, stack some shock debuffs on him, and then go for parries to increase my charges, so that I can get the heavy attack with the untouchable. You need 10 of your charges to be able to do that. So I go ahead, parry that special one, and I block a hit, go for a heavy attack with the untouchable, convert the shocks, and they are doing some nice damage. Now that the protection is up, I go for a knockdown with my special one instead, get some more guaranteed crit charges, and then back to baiting a special from Magneto. Gonna parry it again to get more charges, and once again go for my heavy attack to convert the shocks. The untouchable is still active, so I use that to get an easy opening punishing his special one, and the fight is done. And I gotta say, that went a lot better than I thought it would be, but yeah, that's not exactly the most ideal way to play her in most situations, but with her kit she can be very flexible as well, and that fight just shows it. Now next up we have a Kingpin on the power efficiency and missing in action miniboss node, and I'm taking the fight with Future Ant-Man. I do have the white Magneto pre-fight here to allow me to get easy openings whenever I need them, if I need them. The pre-fight isn't really necessary, but we figured that since I do need to land some heavy attacks here and there to remove the falter timer on me, might as well have the pre-fight if we could fit it in. Now, I did mess up a special one punished there with my heavy attack, and I did get the falter on me, so I just gotta wait it out, and that is also why the passive stun here is good to have. Now, if you're ever taking this fight, the pre-fight is not needed. You can just bait and punish his special ones or heavy attacks with your heavy and do the same thing, or just wait out the falter whenever it does, if it does trigger. Now there is also an issue with baiting Kingpin's heavy attacks, and that is the unstoppable buff that he gains. Whenever that expires, it will also trigger the falter timer, so if you're baiting a ton of heavy attacks, you do need to be prepared for that. Now there was a great video by DLL, one of his war videos. He took the same fight with Future Ant-Man, and he was using a bit of a different strategy than I was, so I highly suggest you check that out. Now this fight so far has gone very well. No real issues, I just gotta keep baiting the special ones over and over, throw my own special 2s with the power detonation active. Fight goes down, Future Ant-Man still at full health, probably another, well, I can't really say best option because that's the only one that I've seen, but Future Ant-Man did just destroy it. Next up we have a Storm Pyramid X on the Conflictor miniboss node, and I'm taking the fight with Future Ant-Man again, but this time I do not have the white Magneto pre-fight. We had someone else take this fight in the previous war in another BG without the pre-fight, while I took mine with the pre-fight, so I asked for the video to see how bad it was, and it was fine, so we figured that it wasn't necessary, so we placed those somewhere else. The plan here is to start the fight off a little bit slower by only doing medium light combos, slowly building up my own armor ups, and then also trying to get that power detonation to trigger on the opponent. As soon as it does, the glancing will be removed due to the power drain shutting off her tempests, and that means now it's my time to get my damage in. Now, Storm Pyramidex can't glance special attacks anyways, but the main problem here with the glancing is that it does prevent the attack tactic from power burning and removing the opponent's prowess. That means that if I was just smacking her around with the glancing up, there is a chance that she would gain a ton of prowess and I wouldn't remove them with the attack tactic. And that can cause a lot of issues due to just how hard Storm Pyramidex's specials hit, which is also why I used an invulnerability boost as a safety net. Future Ant-Man also has the 10% damage cap, so that if I were to eat a special 2, I would have survived that one anyways. And next up we have a Mangog here on the aspect of evolution mini-boss node, and I am taking this fight with Silk. Now this fight, I've taken it in pretty much every single war lately, and it's very simple. As long as you use an invulnerability boost, which I still had on from the previous fight, this one, very simple. But this time the fight doesn't go exactly the same way as the other ones did. He decided to throw that special 2 while I was holding my block, so instead of pushing him to his special 3 and eating it, I auto-evaded the special 2 instead and got to my own special 3 before he did. Now that's not really an issue, but him throwing that special 2 did scare me quite a bit. But thanks to Silk being amazing with that evade as a safety net, I didn't die, I didn't eat it, and everything is good. Now at this point I'm fully expecting Mangog to throw that special 3, but for whatever reason he decided not to. So I just go for another combo into a heavy into a special 2, and the fight is over without eating a single hit. So technically that invulnerability boost was not needed there, but yeah, I'm not taking that without the boost probably ever, because that would just be dumb and risky. And now then, we've got the final fight of this war, an Attuma boss that I'm taking with Shuri. And Shuri is an excellent option for this guy. All of her attacks are non-contact, so Attuma will never be able to trigger his Thorns damage from me hitting him. So unless I decide to start eating combos myself, I will not be taking any of that damage. On top of that, Shuri has one of the easiest ways to get shocks on the opponent, basically just hit them, and that is an excellent way to counter Attuma's hydration charges. Every time you trigger a shock on him, it will remove one charge, and it means that he will never be able to stack too many of them to trigger his unstoppable or other annoying abilities. So Shuri is essentially a direct counter to him. And now I did forget that Attuma was a tactic defender there for a little bit, so as soon as I started hitting him with the guaranteed crits while I didn't have an armor buff, he started getting the prowesses and the passive power gain from them. So I threw a special 1 to knock him down, and here I'm just gonna do the same. Basically, I should not be hitting him with my basic attacks without the armor up anymore at this point, because I will have those guaranteed crits. Now, just to mention, his special 2 has got to be one of the most annoying ones to try to dex, due to just how slow that first projectile is. I get clipped by it pretty often, but I know that I'm not alone there. Now, after that special 1, I decided to go for my own heavy attack to convert any shock debuffs I had on Attuma into passives, and they are doing a ton of damage at this point. All I really need to do is just, well, either keep hitting him with the guaranteed crits or just sit around, wait it out. He would be dead to the shocks anyways, and the boss goes down. Shuri is amazing. As for the results, we did end up winning the war 7-6. We won by a single death, and those 2 mini-bosses as well as the Attuma boss were the very final fights of the war, so I was pretty nervous taking them, but luckily that wasn't reflected on the actual fights, though maybe eating that special 2 from Attuma might say otherwise.